Welcome back to Exotic Car Play Place, everyone. Thanks for joining in again today. Hey, everyone knows Mercedes Benz is synonymous with performance, luxury, style, innovation, and that general build quality that comes with the German brands. And as a result, you would probably expect used Mercedes to also be equally expensive, but you would be shocked. In fact, there are such phenomenal deals on such amazing cars that'll actually blow your mind. But I can't help but share with you guys 10 used Mercedes Benz vehicles that can actually be had for a little more than a song and a dance. But there are actually some good reasons why they're so cheap. Let's get into it now. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Mark with Exotic Car Play Place, and today, the first great car in the used Mercedes marketplace is the C-Class like we have here. Now, while this version here is an old generation, there's still some similarities to the current generation. You get the wonderful three-pointed star right there, the infamous luxury grille, fancy marker lights, an interior that's extremely luxurious with leather interior, heated seats, and sunroof on top. And you'll notice this one's a 4MATIC, that means it's all-wheel drive. And then you've got a current generation model right behind me, like this one here. Here we have a sedan. This one also is 4MATIC, so it's all-wheel drive. But you'll notice this one's a C300. That means it's a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine. You'll notice these newer generations a little more sleek. It has more of a kidney-style rear taillight assembly. Everything's a little more revised in the current generation vehicles. Handles are a little cleaner, the interior's a little nicer, and slightly improved wheels. You'll notice the headlights are better with wonderful LEDs, high performance. And even the grille is beautiful with these stars, or it appear to be a star grille. And of course the three-pointed star here in the center. Accents throughout, improved body moldings, and more accents on the back, including these wonderful exhaust tips. So then why are these cars so cheap on the used car market? Lots of reasons. Number one, the main reason is reliability. They're marginal at best, to say the least. There's lots of electronics and technology tucked away in these cars that could potentially be problematic. When people often buy these cars, they don't like to hold on to them far after warranty's up. And as it seems, the buyers for these cars on the used car market tend to be not looking for the latest and greatest, but they're looking for more value, and they see the value there in buying a used Mercedes. The fact of the matter is too, there's lots of these on the market because they're a volume type car, and there's lots of leases, and when they flood the market in 2 or 3 years after they come off of leases, there's lots of them laying around. So that definitely drives the prices down. And then we have the Mercedes E-Classes next on our list. Stay away from the W210 model. It is an absolute horrid beast in terms of maintenance. They're maintenance hogs. Now, these vehicles were once built like tanks, but sadly enough, with these wheels flat like this is sort of drawing a sick parallel to the reality of what owning an E-Class is like if you don't get the latest and the greatest. If you're gonna buy a used one, make sure it's got low miles, make sure it's got a good service history. But look at a vehicle like this. Flat tires, you've got missing emblems. These vehicles can become absolute maintenance hogs with high miles. Beautiful vehicles as a whole, and the later models get better. See, with 4MATIC, it's definitely got potential. This is an E350. It's not necessarily the kingpin of the E-Class, and this certainly is not the best generation by any means. You could tell by these headlights that this is not one of the best generations. The later models are much better. They're getting better, although the technology is going to start catching up, and it's going to become very, very expensive to repair when parts start going. But these vehicles too, even though this one doesn't have rust, are very prone to rust. I mean, back there you can even see there's starting a little bubbling going on right there, but that's not uncommon. Wheel wells along the bottom of the doors, rust is a problem with these particular generations. My advice would be, if you find a relatively late model car, 2 or 3 years old, with some CPO warranty on it, and with low miles, and it's been well taken care of as per service history, these are absolutely beautiful cars to own. So that's where you want to get in on them, because they will drop like a tank in terms of value. But it's these older models here I would highly suggest staying away from, unless you're a glutton for punishment or you're a certified mechanic of your own. So the next Mercedes that are super cheap on the used car market are anything that's got the ML or the GLE now, which has replaced the ML. The ML is basically built in Alabama, and now the GLE is a further extension of that ML chassis, as we see over here. Right here we have the latest iteration of the ML SUV by Mercedes. Very stylish, the oversized roof on top, luxury appointments throughout, leather interior, heated everything, power to the nines. And here we have the latest updated. This is the GLE. You'll notice it's got the larger three-pointed star. It's also got the revised star-style grille on there. Front spoiler's a little bit more aggressive on the GLE. But if you look at the roof line between this one and this one, they're very much the same. That's because they are essentially based on the same vehicle. So it's mostly a skin change between these two. And unfortunately, the ML was never all that reliable, and the GLE just continues in its path. They're very luxurious. You can get many different engine configurations, beautiful vehicles. And you can see where the GLE is slightly more styled. They've got nicer wheel arches than they have over on the ML. They've got these extra little vents where you don't have them on the ML. Much prettier exhaust tips on the GLE versus what you see on the ML here. Now this is Blue Tech, so this one's a diesel, but again, many different engine configurations in either or. But the problem is I owned an ML. Many years ago I had an ML 500. It was the older generation. Lots of problems. The base engine was fine. The transmission seemed to be okay, but those are problematic areas. I had a crank sensor go on me. I'd have a lot of the plastics on the inside of the cars just start to crumble in your hands, like the rear cup holders, the ashtrays, as well as the sunroof even came off the rails and never worked properly. We had issues with power windows, and the AC went out on it as well. At one point I also developed a misfire, and it was even difficult for the local dealership to even troubleshoot it. I brought the car in because of a misfire. It spent 6 hours in the shop, and they said, well, if we have to go any further, we're gonna have to keep charging you, otherwise you might as well take it home now and start picking away at it yourself. It is that unbelievable. And it's not complexity and lack of build quality that drives the prices down, but I would say if you want a good mid-size SUV, got the three-pointed star, and you're not afraid to do a little bit of your own work, you could save a fortune and wind up in a beautifully well-appointed Mercedes Benz. And look at this beauty right back here. This is the Mercedes S-Class. And if you can believe it, we're talking about a six-figure car you can now have for almost peanuts, but there's a good reason why. See, if you look at this version here, this is a very, very nice example of an S-Class, but I'll show you an ugly one. Right there, there's a bad example of an S-Class. If you look at this, why is it sitting so low? Because the air ride suspension in these things fail very, very commonly, and it's very expensive to fix. So they sit on the ground. When the compressor goes, or the airbags go, or any of the airlines go, that's what happens. There's also been issues with timing chains throughout different years, and a very common failure point with a lot of these S-Class Benzes is right here, and you're seeing rust, lots of it, lots of rust all the way around. It's not uncommon to find these cars with rust around the fenders, rust along the bottom there, rust along the base here because water gets hung up in here. You'll notice there's leaves and things and it plugs up the drain lines, and you can even get rust around the gas cap too. So these are a pig for maintenance once they get older. So to keep the car looking as pristine as this car looks here, it takes a lot of cash all the way around just to keep it looking as like this example. But you do have that wonderful grille, the three-pointed star, the huge oversized sunroof on there, alloy rims, oversized taillights let you know you're in the S-Class, and you've got the great exhaust tips. So generally speaking, I would say avoid the S-Class like the plague, unless you're a real glutton for punishment. Sure, it represents the pinnacle of Mercedes technology, and that's just it. It's the technology that will run you in the poorhouse. If you need to have it, by all means. Otherwise, that's why those cars are so cheap, because they're so expensive to fix. The next one is the GLS right here. These are beautiful vehicles, also built in the US, and trust me when I say these are decked out as you would expect in an S-Class upper-end Mercedes Benz. The problem is there's a recent recall. Power steering, wipers, and left headlight are affected by a bad ground. So electrical system faults are common with these vehicles, and that's where these can become very cost prohibitive eventually when they get older. But again, if you want the premium of the premium, this is the SUV you get. So the next car on my list for Mercedes-Benz that are cheap for a real reason is the CLK. Back in the 90s, there was the E-Class Coupe. Well, it then changed into the C-Class Coupe, so that was an additional model in the lineup. But the CLK essentially was a poorly built car from an era where Mercedes was at an all-time low for quality control. These cars rusted like a sieve. The mechanicals were very much part of the C-Class at the time, which were also very lacking. The CLK had many different engine styles and configurations, which was great. However, because it's fundamentally based on the C-Class, in the era, in the day, it was not generally very very reliable. So there was lots of problems. Plus, it had a strong depreciation to the point where it's worth virtually nothing. And rust was ultimately a bad problem in this era. Because rust is so problematic, why would you want to spend a whole lot of money on a car that was going to rot away on you faster than a kid gobbling up cotton candy at a carnival? That's why the CLK is dirt cheap. And if you are a glutton for punishment, and it seems like a car that you don't mind wrenching on because of its older generational background, you could probably save a lot of money if you find a good clean car from the southern states. It may be good value for you, but go in rest assured that there will be repairs associated with it. It is not a very reliable car. So the next vehicle on my list is right there, the CLA 250. I've done a previous review on these cars and I actually do like the way they drive. You can see the style of them is very attractive. They've got this oversized three-pointed star there with this interesting grille design right here. This is the new style for the CLA. It's been redesigned for this year. With this, you get the oversized glass roof on it. What I really like about the CLA is this rear quarter design. Kind of gives it that slope look, makes it look very, very aggressive. It's also got these wonderful little exhaust tips down there, and it's 4MATIC, meaning it's all-wheel drive. There's your CLA 250. Now, we really do love these vehicles. They're attractive, they're stylish, they're fun to drive. With over 200 horsepower, they've got the 2-liter 4-banger, turbocharged. It's a wonderful car. In my review that I did about it, I really did enjoy it. Now, this is the upgraded version. It has the digital display on it. So unfortunately, that's going to mean even more technology. And most true Mercedes enthusiasts would say the CLA isn't a true Mercedes. Personally, I'm not sure I would totally agree, although the ride is a little jarring, a little harsh. It doesn't have the refinement that you find in a lot of Mercedes, and because of that, used second-hand versions will be very cheap. Now, it's not an expensive car to start with. At about $45,000, $50,000 Canadian, you can now start to find 3-year-old versions for $25,000, $22,000. They drop like a rock in terms of value, but that's a good thing for you and for me. If you're looking for one of these, you can get an astounding deal. And what's the reasoning for that? Just because they're not popular on the used market. That's why. Technology with the double clutch transmission and some of the electronics means there could be some expensive repairs down the way, but at the end of the day, it's a great value and the prices have dropped. The next one is called the C Coupe, or later called the CLC. You'll notice the big thing there is rust. That's the theme of these particular cars. Now, they were inexpensive to buy initially, and they were kind of fun because they were supercharged. You can get a manual gearbox, so they were a lot of fun to drive, but they were cheap to begin with, and they're really cheap today. Now, they were great little cars, and they weren't particularly unreliable. It's just that they weren't really popular with the Mercedes enthusiasts. The SL is the next Mercedes that's extremely expensive to maintain and suffers massive depreciation. Now, they're beautiful cars and full of technology, but it's that very technology that can cause you to spend an arm and 3.5 legs to repair. Not to mention the hardtop has a possibility of leaking, which can cause excessive expenses too for the owners. So it all really just depends what your risk tolerance is and how much you're ready to commit. But at the end of the day, buying one of these is truly a financial commitment because of the depreciation and the high cost of repairs. So it becomes very, very difficult to sell these on the used car market, and even the dealers price these accordingly just to make them palatable for the used car buyer. The Mercedes SL series. So the next Mercedes on the list for cars that are dirt cheap for a reason is the Mercedes CL. It is a beautiful car, truly one of the most remarkable and attractive cars in the lineup. Unfortunately, it's got some very expensive body panels, some very powerful engines, very thirsty and very maintenance intensive, and as well, don't forget it was a 6-figure car. But sadly, now because of depreciation, due to the fact that many second, third, fourth owners do not want to touch a car with this type of sensitivity, the prices have driven down dramatically to the point of you can essentially buy one for the price of a Honda Civic. You're in that territory. Now, that can be both good and bad. It's great for those that are committed to these cars financially, but it's bad for those people that go in blind and don't expect the repairs and maintenance to come with the car, because it will. These are very expensive premium cars. Now, one major benefit with the CL is if you are committed, and you will be if you own one, is that there aren't many on the road. So you do actually have something that does tend to hold a little better value than, say, the S-Class or any of the other E-Class cars, these actually do hold some value. And they're relatively rare, so they're a car possibly worth holding on to if you keep it in good shape. But know that you will be committed financially, and the prices have dropped to seriously rock bottom pricing. And with all of that said, everyone, in case you decide maybe Mercedes Benz isn't the brand for you, check this video out and it'll explain why used Audis are in fact so cheap. Hope to see you guys real soon. Catch you then. Bye-bye.